Hello, I am Mantastic and Fantastic, and today I'm going to be talking about Dark Athena because she was just released in Japan through the Monster Point shop for 750,000. Now, a lot of people are going to be asking, who the hell is Dark Athena? And this article will hopefully address that question, explain why she is relevant, why she is powerful, and perhaps justification as to why there is such a large price tag associated with her. She used to be available in Japan, maybe she still is, for about maybe I think $30 to $40 or so from basically like something you can purchase outside of Pad and then redeem the code through Pad. Something along those lines, I'm not 100% sure. But now they're allowing you to actually acquire her through the Monster Point shop. So this is interesting because she is a very powerful card. And she is powerful because she not only can clear endgame content, but she can clear the endgame content very quickly. Now, hopefully this will explain a bit more of where she stands compared to the other Monster Point cards, and I'm just going to go through all her stats and her abilities. So, Dark Athena is a God Devil attacker. She has 3,600 health, which is okay, and then a blisteringly high 2,500 attack. Now, 2,500 attack is one of the highest in the game, if not the highest, and she actually has two prongs to go along with it. So a single TPA match will be dealing amazing amounts of damage just because she has such a high base value attack. She also has zero base recovery to perhaps compensate for this, but this is actually not too detrimental to her as you explore her leader skill. Now, Dark Athena is actually lacking a skillbound resist awakening, so that can put constraints if you're using her as a leader in solo mode. So Dark Athena's active skill enhances all water and dark orbs, plus 3 turns of delay on an 11-turn cooldown. That is pretty amazing value, to be honest, because most dual-purpose actives tend to add on excessively long cooldowns, and this one here really does not. If we're, say, comparing her to Echidna, who has 3 turns delay for 10-turn cooldown, you're getting double orb enhancement for 1 turn, so that's really good value. You can compare it to, like, say, Woken Oku, who has 11 turns for 2 turns delay, and 50% damage increase for 2 turns. Like, it's similar, at least, is the idea. So, Dark Athena's leader skill provides 1.5 times health and 3.5 times attack for God, devils, and attackers. Furthermore, you gain 2 times attack and 2 times recovery when matching dark and water orbs at the same time. So she actually caps out at 2.25 times health, 49 times attack, and 4 times recovery when you match the dark and water orbs. Now, that may not sound too flashy or extravagant on paper, but this is actually one of the more powerful leader skills available today. So the pros of Dark Athena are she's either a 12.25 times attack or 49 times attack leader. This is because you can choose to match dark orbs and no water, or conversely water and no dark, and control your damage. So you are able to bypass various absorption bosses such as Sopdet because of this. Like I mentioned already, that 2,500 base attack with triple TPA means she is going to spike for incredibly high damage. And her leader skill, despite not looking outrageously amazing, is actually quite tanky. 2.5 times health is going to allow you to achieve probably like 60 to 70,000 in solo mode, maybe more if you have the badge. And the 4 times recovery means you'll heal back to full health every single time. And this actually is able to form one of the strongest leaders in Puzzle & Dragons because she has a very easy to activate leader skill. There is damage control, she is bind immune, and has the potential for very high burst damage. Furthermore, her team building is actually very flexible. She can use essentially any strong dark card in the game because most or almost all of the best dark cards are actually God Devil attackers, provided they don't remove water orbs. So Satsuki's active and Akachi are the only ones you couldn't really use in that sense. So she also has a damage enhance component built in. So you use an active to board change or orb changers, then you enhance them. You also get the delay. It's just a nice active to have. You have 2 different components. So you can have flexibility when dealing with resolve bosses or just scary encounters that need a delay. And unlike a lot of other leaders, most notably Heartcross or row-based leaders, she actually can overcome combo shields with ease because you actually don't have to make any funky pattern. A TPA is not too difficult to accommodate, so you can easily overcome combo shields. She also has no evolution required, and that's actually a big deal because unlike, say, Miru or, say, the other Monster Point dragons, she does not have to evolve, her experience curve is lower, and she's ready to use from the get-go. So say if you had 750,000 Monster Points, you would be able to use her right away. and you'd be very happy because you just have access to one of the most powerful endgame leaders without any work, so to speak. On the downside, her cons are she actually has to match water and dark orbs for the recovery component. So that means you won't actually be able to heal without dealing damage, and you're most likely to be either killing the floor, so that can be problematic. However, however, you are able to at least tank some hits to a certain extent because of your large health pool, but if it was just flat RCB, it would be a lot easier to use and she'd be a lot more strong by comparison. So stalling can be problematic because if you need to stall for multiple turns, you won't necessarily be able to just because as soon as you heal, you're probably killing the floor. She has no skill lock resist awakening, so that means you have to create a more interesting team. It's kind of like the old Raw Dragon where a strong leader had to have somewhat of modifications to their team to accommodate 100% skill bind immunity. You can obviously overcome that through co-op or the skill bind immune badge or cards such as Awoken Oku or more preferably Durga. And she does, to a certain extent, need a gemstone inherit to hit high damage. 49 times is nice, but it still would be helpful if she had a bit more damage. So if you are using an enhance, it does help if you have the TPA or the skill boost gemstone princess. So basically, I kind of went over all those impressions through the pros and cons. However, like I mentioned before, there's a lot of factors that go into making a very powerful leader, and the fact that she's bind immune, easy to activate, and she has high damage and durable are the main selling points for the fact that she's powerful. Furthermore, the fact that she can clear content consistently and quickly is a big step in the right direction because she will not necessarily clear more content than Miru, but she'll clear it faster and with less stress. So that is a big deal when you're actually playing content repeatedly over and over again because you tend to farm dungeons excessively, and this is a great leader to do so with. Now, the 49 times attack does sound low on paper, but you have to remember there's triple TPA, so Dark Athenas, your two leaders, are going to be hitting for absurdly high damage. All your subs are probably going to have at least one, probably two TPAs, like say Haku, Persephone, Lumiel, Durga, they all have 2+ TPAs, or Dark Canna. So the point is you are able to hit very high damage, and that 49 times is misleading. Furthermore, you can overcome the combo shields because you don't have to arrange cross patterns or rows, and those take up excessive amounts of space. So you are able to unleash massive amounts of damage and pretty much clear all the way to the Radar Dragons in Arena 3 without really breaking a sweat, to be honest. Now, the durability in her is quite powerful. 2.25 times health is strong, and Dark does have a lot of great monsters to draw from. You could put in high health cards like, say, Yomi Dragon, or I'm trying to think of off the top of my head. Just Yomi Dragon's coming to my head. Or Xerac Infinity if you really want very high health monsters. And that does help because you are able to tank very large hits. Basically any preemptive you are safe from. No preemptive in the game is going to hit for basically over 50,000 I think at this point in time. So you are safe. Furthermore, you can obviously heal back up to full health. In co-op, I'm going to presume you're going to have around 90 to 100,000 health with maxed out teams, so you can survive any hit in the game. And gravity-based attacks, while dangerous, are not as detrimental, say, compared to, say, Krishna teams or even Raw Dragon because you have a significantly higher recovery multiplier. So you are able to heal back to full health. Unfortunately, when you are trying to stall, you are going to probably kill the floor. 49 times is still respectable, even if you only match, say, one set of Dark. You're still going to hit for a reasonable amount, so it may be challenging to stall unless the boss has massive amounts of health. But what you should be doing is basically tanking hits, and then when you're about to die, then heal and kill the floor, and then repeat on the next one if possible. So the main downside, like I said, is the recovery multiplier is tied to matching water and dark orbs. So you have to keep in mind that, say, if you are using, say, board changers, maybe you want to use something like Ryune. It will help because you will actually have access to the healing and damage. Conversely, Ryune boards are nice because you can break them with, say, Awoken Persephone or Shamali's actives just to flood the board with your ideal colors. Now, Dark Athena has an amazing flexibility when it comes to team building because she does not actually have... she's very unrestricted. Yomi Dragon only can use gods. Pandora can only use devils. Lucifer's devils, gods. But the point being is you can use virtually any dark card in the game aside from very few niche ones. And that allows you to basically use anything you have in your monster box. So if you were able to acquire Dark Athena, you could probably throw together a team of pretty much any team you wanted, and you could probably just roll through content because it's so easy and so powerful to play her. You can favorably compare her to Aizen in that she's kind of a tanky leader, except she trades maximum burst damage potential for the health multiplier so she can tank a lot larger hits with ease. Now, like I said before, one really strong selling point about Dark Athena is that she comes ready to use. There's no evolution, there's no requirements, just feed Tamadras, level her up with like I think 5 million experience and 297 and some pies and you're good to go. Like it's so easy by comparison. Now, this video that's linked in my that's linked on my website will show you a sample of Arena 3 clear in solo mode. It looks pretty easy. It's very fast as well, so it's another great selling point. Now, let's compare Dark Athena to the other Monster Point cards. So, presently speaking, it's very well established that Raw Dragon is pretty much the strongest leader in the game, strongest Monster Point card when you have the ideal team. And then Yomi Dragon and Ragnarok Dragon round out, I guess, the top three, so to speak. And aside from those three, no other Monster Point card really offers that much value to your for your box, because they don't necessarily fill any niche roles that these top three cards do. Like, they don't make necessarily outstanding leaders, they don't make fantastic subs, they don't fill a niche, and in my opinion, you want to have Monster Point cards fulfill a role that is irreplaceable, something that you can't compare, something that you can't acquire anywhere else, or at least they do it so much better to justify the fact that they're worth X amount of Monster Points that you have to acquire them or beforehand vendor rare machine cards to get them. So let's just compare it to, like, say, the original Monster Point cards. So Shiva Dragon and Neptune Dragon, even with their new evolutions, it's not necessary. Like, Shiva Dragon is pretty much outplaced and outdated by comparison just because Awoken Liu is much stronger as a co-op farming leader, and Shiva Dragon's multiplier pales in comparison to Dark Athena. Neptune Dragon is basically a more burst-heavy Krishna with a lower combo count. May have uses for farming if you ever get, like, say, a Zeus Mercury evolution, and you can just button through things, but it's not necessary. It's not doing something that is so outrageous that you actually need to have. So the other two Monster Point cards, dragons, are not really necessary. Odin Dragon, haha, that's funny. So let's compare it to the Four Gentlemen. Now, Xiang Mei became outdated very quickly. Like, the Heartcross meta came in and pretty much just pushed her out, and she was 900,000 Monster Points for the ideal team. So that was kind of saddening, and it's not worth playing her nowadays. It's not worth the Monster Point investment by comparison. Plum is mostly a luxury Gremory sub, so a luxury sub is nice, but Gremory, as strong as she is, does not necessarily need a 300,000 Monster Point card to excel. Like, she's great, but she's not, like, it's not worthwhile at this point in time, to be honest. Plus, Plum can't really be used in any other team very efficiently. She has balance type, so you can't even use her on your Dark Athena team. Yao Yu is just another glass cannon. We have so many glass cannons now that it's not necessary, to be honest. And Xiu Min did gain more relevance because of Tifa, but then again, if you can field the Xiu Min team, you probably can field a Mirror team, and that team will take you further. So it's not really all the other cards are not accomplishing very much by comparison, aside from the top three. And not everyone can use the top three. Not everyone has the perfect Raw Dragon team. Like myself, I'm missing 2 Dark Callies and the Canna. So I'm missing 3 out of the 4 subs. I'm missing all the inherits. It's not going to work, even if I had Raw Dragon. Conversely, Yomi Dragon is at least more flexible by comparison, but not necessarily everyone wants to use it. And Ragnarok Dragon, you may not necessarily have, like, the Kaedes or the Ronave to utilize it fully, or say the Machine Athena, or wherever else Ragnarok Dragon is used fully. So right now, there's not that many options for good Monster Point cards, and Dark Athena is kind of filling this void because she can be used by virtually any player at this point in time. So, with all that in mind, you have to remember that Dark Athena is 750,000 Monster Points, so she costs 2.5 times more than those cards listed above. So you have to think, is she going to bring me that much more value to justify the higher cost? So the top 3 Monster Point cards, like, they are very valuable, but then again, not everyone needs them, and Yomi Dragon is quite inferior to Dark Athena as a leader. She is fun to play, I guess. 5 or 1 enhance is exciting to a certain extent, and the damage is nice, 81 times with 4 times recovery. But there's no health multiplier, so you're more vulnerable to attacks. And your damage potential is probably a little lower compared to Dark Athena, I'd say. But it's mostly the fact that you are more vulnerable to large hits, and Yomi Dragon will struggle in, say, Arena 3, where there's many large hits. So you have to play in co-op, and you probably have to bring a big shield, so you're going to struggle against a lot of different encounters, and that can be problematic. And she still probably can clear Arena 3. Like, I feel like I'm going to probably play Yomi Dragon when it comes out and start clearing Arena 3 with them, because I feel like they have strong enough potential. But Dark Athena is just going to do it better and possibly faster, because it only requires 4 instead of 5 Dark Orbs, so it's a little easier to have all orbs present. Water Orbs should be there, because you're matching the whole board, you're most likely to have 3 Water Orbs fall back down. So, with that in mind, Athena's a little easier to use, and it's going to be faster by comparison. Now, not everyone's going to have value in all of these Monster Point cards, and the fact that she costs 2.5 times more could be justifiable just because she comes ready to use. And the thing is, you have to keep in mind that Yomi Dragon and Raw Dragon have more complicated evolution paths, and not many people are able to acquire them. Perhaps some people did manage to stone their way through the one-shot challenge to get Zeus Dragon, but it still is challenging to acquire. Most people may not necessarily have a Zeus Dragon, because Arena 3 is still tough, and Dark Athena will at least open the door to at least having the chance to clear Arena 3, because she's so powerful. Like, Miru is also great too, but not everyone has the right light subs. You might have better dark subs. So Dark Athena will allow you to clear that content. Like, I feel that Dark Athena is stronger than Beach Miru, just because she's dark and less resistant and much faster and more consistent, and has better access to damage enhanced by comparison, just because you don't have a Akachi, well, like, there's no wedding Akachi for Blue Miru, and Dark Athena already enhances as a built-in kit by comparison. Now, another thing to keep in mind is, if you're trying to make a Raw Dragon team, you might actually probably spend more Magic Stones and, figuratively speaking, trying to pursue that ideal team, because it requires all 6 stars. And Dark Athena doesn't. She could use 6-star Godfest exclusives, but she could use regular Pantheons to great success. Like I said earlier, Lumiel, Haku, Persephone, Durga, they're all 5-star Pantheon cards and more common to acquire by comparison. So this is great because she's flexible and easy to use. So I do feel like it is justifiable because she's so powerful and she's accessible. Like, Raw Dragon has a 300,000 price tag, but the problem is you may not necessarily be able to acquire the other components for it. Now, who could actually afford 750,000 Monster Points? Because that is a very large number. And a lot of people have complained that the one-shot challenges that had the Radar Dragon at the end were too tough and so unfair. It's like, why can't I do it? It's not fair. Like, I want to be able to play everything. Well, sorry to break it to you, but not everyone can be at endgame content. There is a certain level of progression in this game, and not everything can be catered to every single player. If Gung-Ho continuously releases, say, easier mid-level content, the game is going to die out very fast, because you'll eventually overcome that point in the game and you have nothing else to do. And to be honest, at this point in time, there's not much to do at this point if you're at the very top of the game. They're releasing endgame content very slowly at this point in time. And the one-shot challenges, while I guess challenging, were still relatively easy for, I guess, the top players. And this is, I guess, maybe an attempt at extending an olive branch to the endgame players, that here's something that you can work hard to get, and it will at least make endgame content more pleasant because it's faster as well. So it is good that they are releasing varying Monster Point cards, because it has different price points, and then there are different uses in terms of how accessible they are and who can actually afford them. So generally speaking, these are the type of people who are going to be able to afford 750,000 Monster Points. Older players. So Dark Athena is more so meant for players who are interested in endgame content, and generally speaking, those who have been playing for a longer period of time will have at least built up a very strong monster box. They're efficient in acquiring monster points, and they may or may not necessarily have had a lot of purchases in the past, so they're just kind of building up monster points passively. I'm going to use myself as an example. That I actually bought Yomi Dragon when she was first released over a year ago on both my accounts, and since then I've made no subsequent purchases, but I've been playing pretty much all the time since then. Presently speaking, I'm at maybe 720,000 monster points, so I've basically passively acquired about 700,000 monster points in the year's time frame without necessarily selling very much Rare Machine stuff, and only playing Road to Sands when I felt like it, along with playing co-op obviously extensively in order to gain the passive monster point bonus. But the point being is, if you've been playing for a long time, you probably have built up a reasonable store of monster points if you haven't purchased anything in the past. So those type of players are more likely to acquire them. And I feel like there's going to be a lot of other people in a similar boat to me. Like, they have been saving up monster points with nothing to purchase or nothing to buy, and they've been waiting for something viable to use them on. And this Dark Athena is the best outcome so far. The other group of people who could acquire this are dedicated farmers. So every day we gain 480 natural stamina with the potential to rank up, obviously, throughout the day. Now, if you are dedicated to farming monster points, through co-op especially, you can acquire pre-draws from the Rogue Descents along with ranking up. So the Rogue Descents will drop 500 monster points along with plus eggs, evolution materials, kings, so on and so forth. So it's very beneficial to play, and they give usually 50 to 60,000 rank experience or so for completion. And if it's 25 stamina, this is very efficient in co-op. Now, you are able to rank up pretty much non-stop to around rank, I think, 550 by playing these Rogue Descents in co-op. So if you are truly dedicated, you could rank up exceptionally fast and acquire an absurd amount of monster points on a daily basis. Now, obviously that is a lot of grinding, and maybe it's kind of brain deadening, and not necessarily people want to do that, but you could at least compromise. You could play, say, 10 Rogue Descents in a day. Like, obviously, these are dedicated players who want to play the game a lot, so 10 is probably on the lower end of how many times they would play in a single day. And let's say you just only keep the 500 monster points, you sell the 500 monster points and keep the plus eggs and other drops. You'll gain about 5,000 monster points a day plus the co-op bonuses, and that's reasonable because it would take about 150 days or 5 months to achieve that. Now, you obviously will probably rank up during that time frame, so you don't have to necessarily dedicate all your stamina to it, because even if you are a higher ranked player, you probably could rank up maybe once throughout the whole day, like you play in the morning and then rank up later on in the evening, and you are able to at least acquire those monster points and play other content that you probably wanted to do. So it all depends on your goals, like how much monster points you want to acquire. Like, that 5,000 a day will take 5 months to achieve if you started from 0, but you're probably starting at some point already. So it's just a matter of you allocating your stamina and trying to efficiently maximize your usage. Like, it all depends really how much you really want to play and how badly you want Dark Athena without, say, liquidating your monster box. Furthermore, there are obviously other opportunities to gain monster points. There are the challenge dungeons, or challenge descents, which usually reward a 3,000 pre-draw, which is basically 6 rogue descents, so it's very efficient to acquire. There are the ranking tournaments. In theory, a 50 stamina ranking tournament can give you 10,000 monster points. Pretty good as well. So there are lots of ways to at least hasten the process. Furthermore, you're probably going to roll crap from the rare machine at some point, and you'll probably be able to vendor them to a certain extent if you have lots of duplicates. And one last thing to keep in mind is North America should acquire this in about 2 to 3 months time frame, so you do have some time to prepare. And then finally, players who have too much monster points are going to acquire her, because there are some people who are very IAP friendly, which means they spend real life money to purchase magic stones, and they've rolled in excessive amounts of times, and they've got absurd amount of duplicates, so they vendored them, and they don't really know what to do with their monster points. They just keep acquiring too many monster points, and they just buy stuff to kind of prevent hitting a cap, which there shouldn't really be. But the point being is there are players who have, to a certain extent, bought a lot of stones, and they will be able to purchase Dark Athena as a collateral benefit from rolling so much. Now, some people are going to feel that, well, this is kind of pay to win, but to be honest, it makes no difference to you. It's not a PvP game, and if they're happy and enjoying the game at their own pace and through their own lifestyle, just be happy for them. They're supporting the game, to be honest, and it allows other players to be IAP free or very light. And I guess one other thing to keep in mind is that Dark Athena was available in Japan for around $30 to $40 or so, but I'm not sure if that's still around. But $30 to $40 for an endgame card is pretty worthwhile if you really love this game. And finally, as a parting remark, I want to let you know that Awoken Persephone is a very good budget alternative if you cannot afford Dark Athena and want to still get on this hype train. You can use your Awoken Persephone and pair with a Dark Athena. You can run the Leader Bind Immune badge in solo mode so you don't get bound. You have less health, but you have at least some passive recovery all the time, so you can heal a bit more easily without actually having to match water and dark. But you do have less damage, less health, and you are more vulnerable to binds. But you do have a skill bind resist, so there are some pros, but there are more cons, but at least it's an alternative for players. So, conclusion, to buy or not to buy. And this pretty much comes down to your own personal pad goals and the resources you have available. Dark Athena may not necessarily clear more content than Light Miru, but she's going to be probably just as consistent and significantly faster while giving you access to different cards that you could not normally use beforehand. Miru obviously needs light, heart-making cards ideally, whereas Dark Athena can use pretty much any dark sub. So she's going to be a bit more accessible. She's also easier to play. She's easier to evolve because there's no evolution. It's just less resource intensive once you actually have Dark Athena. And she can currently clear any content in the game, so that is exciting because you are able to basically start tackling endgame content with a leader right from the get-go. Now, Dark Athena also offers another playstyle. Like, the bi-color matching is at least somewhat newish, but it does break up the idea that you have to make rows or pure rainbows or crosses. So it is a different playstyle, so variety is nice to have because it does keep the game fresh and enjoyable. And it is worthwhile to players who do have the resources available to purchase her because she's going to instantly allow you to tackle endgame content if you were not able to beforehand. And I feel she's worthwhile. Yes, it's expensive, but right now, what else are we going to really spend these monster points on? Like, if you can't use the top 3 I mentioned beforehand, what do you really save them for? Why not actually invest in something that's going to at least advance your game forward? Or if it doesn't advance your game forward, it makes your game much easier. So, for myself, I plan on actually purchasing Dark Athena for both my accounts when she comes to North America. I'm going to make the presumption that she's coming to North America because the other pad crosses have come stateside or European side, if you may. So I don't see why they wouldn't, and it makes financial sense to do so. So let me know what you think about Dark Athena. Do you think you're going to try and farm up enough monster points to basically purchase her? Do you want to purchase her, or are you going to go the more rare machine route and vendoring? So let me know what you think in the comments below. Hopefully you have a mantastic day, and happy puzzling!